Depth perception, also known as stereopsis, is the visual ability to perceive the world in three dimensions and the distance of an object. Depth sensation is the corresponding term for animals, since although it is known that animals can sense the distance of an object because of their ability to move accurately or to respond consistently according to that distance, it is not known whether they perceive it in the same subjective way that humans do. Our capacity of perceiving depth is conferred to us by some visual cues that are called monocular if originated by the action of only one eye, and binocular if they are caused by both our eyes. Among the many binocular and monocular cues that allows us to perceive depth, one is fundamental, the binocular cue retinal disparity. Since the pupils of our eyes are roughly about 3 inches apart, this means that the right eye perceives a slightly different image than the left one. During our top-down processing, we basically merge the two images to create one that has this sense of depth. Only a little part of the monocular cues helps perceiving depth. One of them is the motion parallax, or relative motion, which is one of the cues that we can use on a painting, but only in the real world. Basically, thanks to this cue, we can perceive the depth of an image from the relative motion of two objects. For example, let's imagine that to have close to in front of us an apple, and then an eagle which is really far away. Now, let's suppose to move left or right for 1 or 2 meters. The closer object, the apple, goes from the edge of our field of view to the other as we move through this distance. On the other side, the eagle apparently stays still, or moves just a little. This action kind of tricks the brain that has the sensation that the eagle is actually far away, and so we perceive depth. Moreover, our depth perception is also influenced by our previous learning. This is why, for example, when we look at a picture of someone or something we know, we can actually guess with precision its dimensions. This is part of the top-down processes. Also, audition sometimes helps us with the depth perception. For example, if you are seeing an object which is not really close to you and is emitting a sound, according to its loudness, your brain can actually calculate how far away should the object be. Now, let's face depth perception from an evolutionary point of view. In fact, how did our eyes' position evolve during the years until giving us the ability of perceiving depth? Let's start saying that there are some animals in the world, like turtles for example, that, even if they don't have convergent and frontal eyes, process the visual information as their eyes were forward-facing. This could be caused by the fact that when those animals retuck their heads into their carapaces, they are only able to perceive light from the front, and so maybe they got used to it. But what about the trees-living primates? Why did they develop depth perception in frontal eyes? From Edward Treacher Collins, ophthalmologist, point of view, early primates needed sight that would enable them to swing and spring with accuracy from bough to bough, to grasp food with their hands and convey it by them to their mouths. This hypothesis grew and grew over time, but there was still a problem. There were other trees-living animals that had divergent eyes. This is why the biological anthropologist Matt Cartmill proposed a different idea, the visual predation hypothesis. The hypothesis is based upon the fact that most of the predators in nature, like leopard or lions for example, are equipped with a better depth perception than other animals. Since the primates have always sought for their prey primarily with their vision than with other senses, this hypothesis is more accurate and believable. Anyway, also this theory has its weaknesses, like the fact that many predators without good sight does exist. A theoretical neurobiologist, Mark Chanzicki, has another idea. In fact, he offered up the X-ray vision hypothesis. In short, forward-facing eyes allowed our ancestors to see through the dense leaves and branches in their forest habitat. This theory is supported by the fact that when we put one of our fingers in front of us, we are still able to see all the background behind it. just like seeing through minute leaves. The problem affected only the primates, because they were the only big-shaped animals that lived on the trees. The evolutionary reason of our depth perception, anyway, is still not certainly answered, because each of the theories has its strong points and weak points. At the end, we have to answer the final question: do we learn to perceive depth? Even if learning is fundamental to quickly perceive depth of known objects, depth perception is mostly an innate capacity. As the visual cliff experiment, initially developed by the psychologists Eleanor J. Gibson and R. D. Walk at Cornell University, demonstrate, in fact, the human babies since their birth are able to perceive the fake cliff present in their experiment, and they are also scared of crossing it, even if, at the end, motivated by their mothers, they finally do it. The visual cliff apparatus consists of a sheet of plexiglass that covers a cloth with a high-contrast checkerboard pattern. On one side, the cloth is placed immediately beneath the plexiglass, and on the other, it is dropped about 4 feet below, giving to the baby a cliff illusion. I hope you have enjoyed my video about depth perception and visual cliff. Here you can find my references.